This is America's Mayor Live, and we're coming to you on a rubber band. No, Rob is working on a rubber band to get it ready, and it was working for a while, Rob, and it went out again. But it looks like it's about ready to snap right there. And you may hear a snap. That's Rob's rubber band. Speaking of Rob's rubber band, I got a question to ask right at the top of the show for the assembled group of geniuses that we have here. And we do. Very smart people. They're all very smart people. I think they're going to get that. We just had a little test and everybody won it. The question is the following. I know there's a lot of just a lot of confusion and ambiguity with this Biden family. Really, I mean, it's really like confusing. Like, here, I mean, let's face it. When I'm not being disrespectful or anything like that, Joe is not a very smart guy. Now, people say, well, he made a lot of money. We grant that, but I know a lot of people. I've heard them on tape for years and years and years who made a lot of money that weren't very smart. Sometimes if you're in the right position of power or you got the muscle, you can make money even if you're a massive dope. However, the family has made a lot of money. And I would say if you would be willing to just go one step beyond like the New York Times and these people who are, pathetically ignorant because, I don't know, they want to convince themselves that Biden's honest or something. But if you just take a step with me, you know that he's made right now, just based on the revelation, somewhere between $30 and $50 million. Okay, that's a good deal of money for anyone in a lifetime. Now, I just want you to like use your common sense to make 30 to 50 million for a family enterprise. To make that, they have to have like an invention, right? Or maybe they get some McDonald's franchises, or maybe they invent something fairly interesting that people can buy. Or maybe they're like, maybe they're like doctors and they all get together in a practice and it's enormously, maybe they're like plastic surgeons and they have their own little practice. Like in Palm Beach, they have like a whole row of them. Then you have like 5 different types of faces in Palm Beach. So you go someplace, you can sit in a restaurant and you can see the same face at about 14 tables. So, it's Dr. Jones or Dr. Here. Oh, here comes Dr. Schwartz, and here comes Dr. McCarthy, and here comes maybe you like they're a bunch of plastic surgeons, or maybe they were good at investing, really, really good at investing, like Hunter and all the family. But the fact is, they weren't. We know that they didn't have any of that. And he's been in public service all his life, and Jill's been a teacher. Could it be? Could it just be that these countries like China that gave them at least 31 million, and Ukraine 8 to 15, and Russia 4, and could it be that they were bribing the vice president and a senator? Could that be what they were selling? Could it be that they were selling his public office? No, it never occurred to the New York Times that could be it.
Russian collusion, stop it.
That couldn't be it. No. So now we have a new one. It turns out that the National Archives and Records Administration, have you heard of them? They're called the NARA. They're the ones that are trying to frame Trump. They're the ones, they've let every president take their records and stick them, I don't know where, nobody even knows where Obama's records are. I think they have records going back to, George Washington would have turned all his records in. Probably Adams. They got records going back to Adams. And But Trump, they got to go after Trump, right? Because they're a bunch of lefty Washington. They probably like to go to the cocktail parties, and stuff like that. That's the National Archives and Records Administration. It turns out that they have 5,400 emails, electronic records, and documents from a certain Vice President Biden that have pseudonyms. 5,400 that are using, let's put it another way, phony, fraudulent names, fake names, aliases. Oh, Robin Ware. You've heard of Robin Ware. He was a vice president, right? Or Robert L. Peters, or J.R.B. Ware. That's Robin's brother. These are all Biden aliases. But 5,400? Not 10? 5,400? So who uses that many aliases? I'm going to tell you from my experience. Organized criminals, terrorists, con men. Could it be that Joe Biden is a criminal? Could it be that he was actually getting all that money? And he was laundering it? And he was using phony names to communicate with his bagman? No, that can't be it. Must have been just a cute little game that he had. Must have been a cute little game that he had with his son. He would say, "Oh, call me Robin Ware," or Robert L. Peters. I mean, you get the big money from China. J.R.B. Ware. Come on. Cut the crap. 5,400. The Records Administration is concealing them. This is like concealing the hard drive. Maybe we should drop that records case with these scumbags that are involved in it, huh? 5,400 pseudonyms. When are we going to put this guy in jail? What does he have to do? Walk out and shoot somebody in front of the White House? They must really think we're stupid. They must think we're a bunch of jackasses. He gets all this money from governments like China and Russia, made up of organized criminals. He uses pseudonyms. We have, I've got records of money laundering transactions. He gets 3.2 million from Ukraine to Latvia, from Latvia to someplace else, from someplace else to Croatia and to him. That's the way you get your check, right? It goes through Latvia. And they make believe it's a loan for the first 3 transactions, not your paycheck. We all get our check that way. Goes through. Who gets their check straight? Okay, now, second one we got today. I'm telling you the ones you're not going to hear about from the time. You're not going to hear about the 5,400 phony names being used by the former vice president who's alleged to be a massive criminal. You're not going to hear about that in the New York Times because they'd have to catch up on the fact that he's a massive criminal. They've left you out of that story for the last 5 years. It'd be kind of a shock. You can't tell you all at once that he uses 5,400 days. You'd be too shocked. You get a heart attack if you're not caught up on the story. This is like watching the last chapter of Game of Thrones or something. You wouldn't know anything about all the murders they did before. They murdered 5 people a show. The second one today is, this U.S. attorney, the one that has 4,432 times been described as appointed by Donald Trump. You don't even need the name, right? Who is the U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump? Mr. Weiss from Delaware. Of course, he wasn't really appointed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't know the hell he was. He was appointed by the 2 senators from Delaware who were asshole buddies of the crook. Yeah. That's who Weiss was appointed by. And he's the one that came up with the most ridiculous plea bargain ever developed by a prosecutor in the history of the world. The guy, for a 10-year felony of possessing a firearm as a drug dealer, and a guy who's an aggravated drug dealer and a dangerous drug dealer, one who drives automobiles while he's smoking crack and endangering the welfare of minors by smoking it in a house with minor children that a psychiatrist complained about. A guy who's an aggravated drug dealer, they're going to let him off the hook for that. No, he's going to get diversionary plea like some juvenile delinquent. That's the U.S. attorney. And in fact, he didn't even want to do that. He got forced into doing that by the IRS agents and FBI agents who wanted him to do a lot more. And then he told this story that he couldn't do it because the U.S. attorneys in the District of Columbia and the U.S. attorney in L.A. wouldn't bring the charges. But then the attorney general, who's the boss, had said under oath that he had the power to bring these charges, even if he wasn't the U.S. attorney. He said Mr. Weiss had more power than any U.S. attorney. He could bring these charges anywhere. Mr. Weiss tells the IRS agents and the FBI, well, I can't bring it. They don't have this power. So could we conclude that somebody's lying? Either Mr. Weiss or the Attorney General? Yeah, well, somebody's lying. So Mr. Weiss also, according to the Attorney General, acts independently. Except Mr. Weiss had his assistant go to the White House and ask the White House to handle it. In other words, the White House was handling the situation in which their boss could very well be committing perjury. It's either their boss committing perjury or Weiss. And he gives it to the White House, and he's independent. He's independent. Justice officials offered to take the lead, of course they did, from Weiss to protect their boss, to cover up in drafting responses to the GOP lawmakers who were basically asking, who the hell's lying here? One of you guys is a liar. Which one? Want to take who tried to take the fall here? One of you guys is going down for perjury. Which one? And of course, the lead was they wouldn't respond to the Republicans. And Weiss wouldn't respond to the Republicans until he heard back from the Justice Department. So that should be the signal that he's a creature of garlands. He's like, puppet, 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 lie. Now, Weiss, lie now. Boop, 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 boop. Weiss, let Hunter go. Boop, boop, boop. Weiss, make believe you have the power to indict him. Okay, boss. Weiss now is screw the Congress. Screw Congress. That's what he is. How long are you going to put up with this, huh? How long? How long are you going to put up with the fact that we don't have a person in Washington who can stand up every day and say, "Get lost, you senile old bum. You're imperiling the safety of our kids by being president." I know that's a slightly different subject, but that's another reason to get rid of him. Guy's walking around. He walks around the beach. He doesn't know where the hell he's going. If that woman weren't behind him, he'd walk in the ocean and we never see him again. Now, as long as we're doing argument by sarcasm, why don't we try this one? Would you say that the fact that all of a sudden, after 3 years of investigating all these cases, that no trial is brought, no case is brought, nothing's brought, they all get brought in the 7, 8, 9 months before the major presidential election, They're all brought against the opposition candidate. Not a single one of them is a crime we recognize that's ever been used before. I mean, when in God's name was RICO ever used for an election dispute? Or some guy is prosecuted because he paid money to settle claims against him by a woman, which is beyond the statute of limitations anyway. What's the crime? Where's the crime? Oh, he entered a false accounting record, but he's not an accountant. A false accounting record on the president of the United States? Are you freaking kidding me? And you want to tell me it isn't a fix? And you do it, you want to bring it to trial 4 months before the election? Or Fanny Yo-Yo, who wants to bring the RICO case? A RICO case. RICO is like, RICO, it would be RICO if you did this. If Trump called up and he said, hey, Ravensburger, you scumbag, you're going to get me those freaking votes. I'm going to break your freaking legs. Not, can you find me the votes? Or when gosh almighty, I could have found him that number of votes about 8 different places. All he had to do, I tell you, all Ravensburger had to do to find those votes is hand me the ballots. Keep 1,000 cops around me. You hand me the ballots, I bet I'd pull out over 11,000 phony ballots from the ones they would never show us. Pull out a lot more in Pennsylvania. You think you fool me? What was the line in the? You don't fool Corleone. No, you don't. You're too stupid to fool Corleone. You don't think I figured out from the very, very beginning why you wouldn't let the Republicans look at the paper ballots? Why the hell you had to put rails up like they were cows? And it just so happened that you did it in 5 cities, all Democratic crooked cities, only there, and you wouldn't let Republicans see a single piece of freaking paper, that you wouldn't even obey a court order that was given to Pat Bondi to let us see even one little piece of paper, because you were afraid if she saw one, she'd see one that was like this. And if she saw one like this, you were dead, because this cannot be this could never be a mail-in ballot, because you have to fold a mail-in ballot. It has to come in an envelope. And if it doesn't come in an envelope, it's invalid, because the envelope is the only place you can sign a signature. It means it was never identified. If it comes like this, it means it comes from a factory 2 blocks away in Atlanta where it was printed. And they put the name about 4,000 or 5,000 times in a row. They put the name Biden. And then when you counted it, you had 4,000 ballots, 3,998 for Biden, and you have 2 little ones down here filled in like it for Trump. I'm not exaggerating. You had a couple like that. You had a couple that went over 99.9% for Biden. Counts. But nobody got to see the paper. You wouldn't show us the paper. You, Ravensburger, you lying bum. You wouldn't let us see the paper. Huh. And you had in your desk all the time a report that said that the chain of custody was so bad that nobody could figure out where the ballots even came from. Why would you screw up the chain of custody? You see, I'm sorry, I'm going through this, but these are the things that told me on day 1 and 2 when I found this out, that this was a fugazi. It was fixed. So they're going to have the trial on the 4th of March. They just picked the 4th of March of next year. I mean, it's just a complete coincidence that the next day is Super Tuesday and there are 12 elections that day. Just a complete I mean, they wouldn't want to do anything to interfere with the presidential election. And it's just probably not supposed to do that, But They're just going to happen to have it that day. Now, let me see if I get the rest of them right. I wrote them down over here. Let me see if I have them all. Oh, yes. Then on my father's birthday, they're going to have the New York election on March 25th. That's going to be interesting, too, to see if they can get
in New York case.
They can get it. They can get the case in. They can get the case in Washington done between the 4th and the 25th. It'll be good. It's going to probably take between the 4th and the 25th to pick a jury. That'd be. I mean, they could actually. You know what they could do though? They could get a Super Express jet helicopter and fly them back and forth every other day. Do New York one day, and they could do Washington the next day and fly them back and forth. So this way he wouldn't be able to campaign at all. And if it's Biden, Biden wouldn't have to even worry about leaving his basement. He could stay there. And I'm sure he'd be happier in his basement than the White House. Then, just to make sure that he can't win, they scheduled one for May, I think it's May 30th, and way down in Fort Pierce, Florida, when it's 950 degrees. This one is intended to keep him busy or boil him to death. They're either going to fry him or they're going to keep him. Now, it is possible that all three of them could be going at once. You have no idea how long this case can go, particularly if a judge is not a particularly disciplined judge, and we don't know how the judge is. I mean, I've had cases. Pizza Connection case went on for 27 months. A different judge might have tried it in like 20 months. But judges are different. So you could have all three go. That would be the Democrat
trifecta.
Oh yeah. So now, then he could be on trial every third day. So they could start in Florida on Monday. To save him some time, they take him only to Washington on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday he'd go to New York. Then he'd come back, and he'd always finish in Washington. So he wouldn't be too far from Bedminster because he'd have to rest over the weekend, and he'd never be able to campaign. Well, don't count on it, by the way. Trump might have rallies at night. Yeah. I mean, he'd take the plane, he'd take the helicopter,
Well,
he'd do a side one, and he'd probably get 60,000 people.
Well, Mayor, I was going to say the trial before Super Tuesday is going to backfire on the Democrats because
I didn't mention the one that I'm involved in because I'm really not supposed to talk about that one.
I'm talking about the trial.
But they could try that one too.
Yeah.
That would then be but she wants to try that one in March also. So I don't know. They could do what they could do if they wanted to be like really generous. They could do four. They could do 4 a week and give him Friday off, so he could campaign on weekends.
Yeah,
and Biden would be willing just to campaign on. You know how the Democrats would make it fair. Biden had promised I won't campaign at all, like he did last time. Because that would help him a lot because then they never have to worry about Biden showing up and nobody else showing up. Well, so Super Tuesday is going to be. Super Tuesday is going to be. I don't know which of the phony cases that one is.
It's the January 6th one.
Oh, that's the January 6th one that we can't figure out what it's about.
Yeah.
But that's the January 6th one.
It's going to backfire. He's going to win Super Tuesday because everyone's going to be mad that he's getting prosecuted. So it's, I mean,
And then the second one on the 25th is the New York one that's so old a lot of people can't remember. A lot of the witnesses have now died. And then we head down to Florida for the documents case. That's the one that was coordinated with the National Archives, record archives, the ones who conceal 5,400 pseudonyms of Biden's. We got a good chance with that one. And then, of course, eventually we've got the 19 defendant RICO case, which they want to start where Trump is completely unprepared for and everybody else. And that would go on for about 2 years, I think, with 19 witnesses and everybody gets to cross-examine. And and they don't have a courthouse big enough for it. We'd have to try it at the arena. Maybe we try it at the same arena where they came up with the a video of the votes being put under the blanket and everybody thrown out, and then they counted them, which the governor and the attorney general announced were perfectly valid, missing the fact that Georgia has a statute that says the votes have to be counted in public. They don't bother to mention that, and nor do the people that question me, or they say, well, that law doesn't count. That law doesn't count. You mean you really think that law counts? Well, I don't know. It says if the public isn't present, the vote's not valid. What does that mean if it's not valid? Well, we're going to take a short break, or Mike's going to have a heart attack, and we'll be right back. The Towers Foundation delivers on its promise to do good and never forget the sacrifices America's greatest heroes have made for us. Heroes who risked their lives to keep our communities and our country safe. Heroes like United States Marine Corps Captain and pilot John Jeremy Sachs. Captain Sachs sustained fatal injuries when his military aircraft crashed during training, killing him and 5 other service members. He's remembered by loved ones as courageous, brilliant, and devoted to his career, family, and friends. John is survived by his wife, Amber, who gave birth to their second daughter 3 months after his death. Tunnel to Towers paid the mortgage on the family home for Amber and their 2 daughters. The foundation has helped over 1,000 military and first responder families navigate the worst of times by removing the burden of a mortgage payment. Our nation's heroes and their families need your help now more than ever. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org. T2T.org. Please donate now. You want to send in your $11 check. T2T.org. Okay. Just go right online, put your credit card in. You got it all done. Okay. So I told you about Super Tuesday. We're going to have the first trial. I think it'll be put off, but in any event, they're doing the best they can to jam next year up with as many trials as possible. And who knows what else they're going to do, because really this is just chapter 8 in a book that begins with the phony collusion with Russia. Each one of them is a sequence. Each one of them is the same group of people who are lying, conniving, violating laws. The same group of people, the same person, and then a slightly different group around him of people related to Donald Trump. And it has a purpose. The purpose is to destroy Donald Trump. And I think that Donald Trump and his lawyers should go before a federal court and say this is a long-term 5-year conspiracy engaged in by all these people to prevent me from being or removing me as president of the United States. And they should be put in jail, and it should be enjoined under 1983, which you can do. I think there is as much evidence of that as there is that Joe Biden is a crook, with which there is plenty of evidence. 77% of the American people say Joe is too old to be president. Now that they don't really mean too. He's not too old. He's not too old. He's completely brainless. That's why you shouldn't be president. They're mistaking completely brainless for old. I don't know. You can look at Trump. Trump is a couple of years younger. Trump's got nothing missing. He's as sharp as he was 20 years ago. And I have friends that are 80, 82, 83 that are sharp as a tack. And I got friends who were 30 and are stupid. None as stupid as Biden. I know you think I'm joking when I say that. I know that. And I know in the past, before we knew what a bad guy Biden was, I used to say to people about him, they'd ask me, because I knew him for a long time, what's Biden like? And I said, he's a nice guy. He's not. Fooled. I said, he's a nice guy, but boy, is he dumb. How is he dumb? And then I'd laugh. What? I mean, it really is. If I told you how dumb he is, you wouldn't believe me. Well,
yeah, you're right. Mayor, you're right. It's not an age thing. I mean, I know people in their late 70s, right, that are at it day in and day out and have it together much more than my 30-year-old peers. And I mean, look at you, Mayor, not to use you as an example here, but come on. I mean, I see you
I'm an
day in and day out. It's not an age thing.
According to one of the newspapers today, I'm an alcoholic.
Oh my goodness! If you're an alcoholic, if you drank as much as these liars say you did, then I'm doing something wrong. I mean, I should be. And you accomplished what you did. Can you imagine? I mean, we should be. It's such a farce, and we have. And look, Mayor, I'm not. You
know how good God is. Thank you, God. A lot of liars don't come up with a date for their lies, so you can't pin them. For example, that woman who claims that Trump assaulted her in the dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, which is totally crazy. You'd have to know Bergdorf Goodman. You'd have to know what it's like there for me to really explain to you how crazy that is, particularly for Donald Trump, who was one of the best known people in New York. I mean, I could explain, and the case just wasn't tried right. I tried that case, that jury would have jumped up and said not guilty. I don't know who tried it, so don't get angry at me, but they don't have the ability to make people laugh, and they don't know how to do sarcasm in a trial when they have to. See, to be a great trial lawyer, you got to be a great actor, and you got to know how to be mean and tough. You got to know how to act stupid. I've been very, very helpful on cross-examination, particularly of arrogant politicians. That's how I got my first guy to break down on the witness stand. That's how I got my first guy to break down on the witness stand. I acted like I was dopey. He thought he was smarter than I am. And all of a sudden, I had him because I had the document hidden and he didn't know that. But the fact is that we have got to find a way to get these trials put off, because I believe that he can run next year with the burden of these trials and still win, but I don't want to. I don't want to take the chance. It's too important. It's too darn important for our country. So the one before Super Tuesday, I believe is going to be put off because it's not enough time. It's not enough time to get it prepared by then. The big one, the 19 defendant one, let's just say there's no way. It comes forth and it's a 5-month trial no matter what you do. Meadows is now trying to get it removed to the federal court. And you should know one fact here, because what I'm trying to do is cover the things that you aren't going to hear anywhere else. Meadows took the witness stand, which I was shocked at. And during it, they come up with this testimony, all the papers that hate Trump, that's like, this is gospel. They said to him, and Meadows was making the point, I was just his chief of staff, and he asked me to do these things. And I believe that there was, in his case, he said there was a very good question about whether or not the election was fixed. He was asked, did he agree with William Barr that the allegations of fraud in the 2020 election were bullshit? And that's the word that was used in court, bullshit. And he said no. He thought the allegations deserved further investigation. And but I want to tell you something about why. I mean, they used this William Barr thing, like, oh my God, it must be true if William Barr said it. If William Barr said the election wasn't fixed, the election wasn't fixed. As if William Barr is the arbiter of truth. He's like in 1984, the commissar of truth. It will be decreed that the election is not fixed. And no one can say that it's fixed, or they will be taken off and whatever.
You can, Mayor, not only, it's not that you couldn't assert that it was fake, you couldn't even question it, right? You couldn't even.
I'm sorry.
You couldn't even.
Let me make and you cannot question it. Yeah, that Barr would look good too, like as the minister of truth.
He would be that role.
Yeah, you could get the big fat face and would not be true, and it's not true. Now, I want you to step aside. People just say this. Even people on our side say, well, Barr said. Please step back. Everybody step back for a second. Take a deep breath. Is it possible Barr's lying? A fat guy like that wouldn't lie. He looks like Raymond Burr playing Perry Mason.
This video of him. I know another fat guy who tells lies about you too.
He doesn't lie either. I mean, Christie wouldn't lie. He's too fat.
He knew what I was talking about.
Could I just
think of that?
Would you mind if I just threw something called a fact in? I know this is going to be very disturbing to those of you who are Democrats or have a problem with this, because facts get you nervous. But let's try a fact. William Barr had the hard drive for almost an entire year and kept it hidden under his fat ass. He concealed it. And no one, not a single person, not a single make-believe patriot in Washington, Republican or Democrat, has raised that question one time. What the hell were you doing with the hard drive, Barr? You were the Attorney General of the United States. Why were you hiding it? It only has about 500 crimes on it. The crimes jump out at you and grab you by the throat and go like this. It's got dirty pictures in it. They call it child pornography, you scumbag. That's what they call it. Child pornography. And you hid it. And you hid it to such an extent, you let them do an entire impeachment of a president of the United States when that hard drive would have completely vindicated him. It contained every reason why he should have that conversation with the president of Ukraine, because Biden was up to his neck in bribery. You held it back. Number two, you sat there through a debate in which Biden accused him of being a pawn of Russia and accused me specifically of being a pawn of Russia, of which I take some personal offense. And you knew it. You knew I wasn't. You know why? Because your FBI had validated it 6 months earlier as Hunter Biden's and not Russian. And you sat there and kept your foul mouth shut. Like the liar you are. That's a lie. That's a major lie by omission. Dishonorable liar that you are. So you could be a big shot in the Bar Association. So they kiss you big fat you know what when you went to the cocktail parties. So you wouldn't be impeached. Ooh, they might impeach you.
Mayor, I read that. Is that true? He was afraid of being impeached. Is there any truth to that?
Well, they have something on him. I don't know. I mean, these are big crimes that he committed. Holding back the hard drive for the chief lawyer of the United States is about as big a crime as an attorney. It makes whatever Mitchell did seem like going through a red light. We had an impeachment that wasn't necessary because of him. And then finally, they fixed an election. He let them fix the election. When we put out the hard drive and the New York Post published it, he sat back knowing it was valid. When all the social media and all the major newspapers refused to publish it because it might be Russian disinformation. And he knew that was false. And he sat there and let the election take place under false pretenses. He let his fellow citizens be lied to about the most important thing they do. And I knew that by the time we got to the election. And I'm going to believe him? Trump's going to believe him? Trump knew it. I don't know about Meadows. He tends to be more naive. Don't get angry, Mark. You tend to be. You didn't grow up on the streets of New York. You didn't prosecute 5,000 criminals. I don't know what Mark believed, but I knew I'm dealing with a liar. I can't believe it. And I knew he lied to us specifically about having things investigated because they would never investigate it. I gave him things he never investigated. He left people at risk of death and not investigated it. So Barr's word means probably, if Barr said that the allegations of fraud are bullshit, they're probably true. He lied about everything else. So when this dumb newspaper writes that, then, you got to say, what, Meadows is supposed to sit back and think it's the word of God because Barr said it's bullshit? When he's covered up probably the biggest piece of evidence in American electoral history.
Bill, I mean,
let's wake up and start getting real, huh?
All you got to know about Bill Barr, Mayor, he resigned in the final weeks of President Trump's administration, like you said.
No, that isn't all you have to know about him. What you have to know about him is that he had the hard drive for a year and covered it up. That's what you have to know about him. Well, we're going to take a short break, and I'm going to get prepared when we come back for my administration of fruits.
The year is 2022. Cancel culture is the new normal. Online freedom, as we know it, has ended. Digital stockades are here. All activity is monitored, stored, and predictively analyzed by a technological cartel. We're being converted into a digital resource, a digital currency to be farmed for metadata and loaded into a computerized combine, blockchained to a social engineering operating system. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Be part of a new technological revolution. Right now, 1,000 test pilots have launched themselves into a new digital frontier, a private network outside of big tech control. New technology with state-of-the-art digital engagement and never-done-before security and privacy features that are now operational. With Quick's digital engagement, entertainment, communication, and commercial exchange will never be the same. We are QUX. Quicks. Advanced pre-release sales are limited to 3,000. Order now by visiting quicks.tv. Get yours now before they sell out. Be part of a brand new online experience that you control.
That we have we have a monitor there, and we have QUX on it right there. And I see it has, I guess those are my favorite stations. It has Newsmax. I have to admit it has Fox. I don't know why they're my favorite stations. They kind of screwed me last night and didn't give me credit for being the first one to develop Shokin, made it appear as if Kill Me did. But what the heck? It's a lot better than trying to put me in jail. QAN, which OAN, which happens to be a network that sponsored my trip there. The History Channel, I see that. I can't make out the other two, but I probably shouldn't advertise them anyway. And then they got a couple of, unfortunately, they have recommended channels. We're going to have to do something about that. Do you know the first one they're recommending? Guys, this is a sacrilege.
Gross.
They're representing a communist station, NBC.
Yes.
I mean, at least Fox is not a communist network. The other one looks like NASA or something.
It's TBN. I don't know what that is, man.
Well, they have, I want you to know, so with QUX, if you go QUX.TV, promo code Rudy, you'll be able to get all the channels you want. Well, you get basically all that you want for $45. Then you want to go to the super premiums, like you like those extra movie channels. And I don't particularly. Every once in a while, I get annoyed because I don't have one, like one that I might use once a year. But if you want to get those, that's $114, which is like half of what it would be with anybody else. The little box, I think you get for less than $200, right?
Oh yeah, Ray, with your promo code, I believe it's 185 at the tax-ish, 175-ish.
Yeah, something like 175 for that. That, of course, you pay once and that's it. And that also allows you to do some broadcasting if you want to do it. You can do it several different ways. You can do it to a little group of people that are your friends. Your little group can broadcast on TV, or you could try to go bigger, like we're doing. And we're on there. We're on QUX right now.
That's right. And it's encrypted.
Oh, and really important.
That's the best.
The thing that I don't think people really get that the way they should. It means they can't be figuring out every damn thing. The minute you buy like a hammer, right? All of a sudden you get 45 hammer advertisements. Every kind of hammer imaginable. Every stupid hammer. I mean, you only want one kind of hammer. You don't want, if you get like a big fat hammer, you don't want a little teeny hammer, but you get a little teeny hammer. So I'm going to show you now balance of nature. Balance of nature is powdered, and it's advanced vacuum cold process, which stabilizes like a maximum nutrient content. So this is like a power. Let's say these two capsules here. You'd have to watch it being made, but these are power packed. In other words, it's like they have 100 fruits in it and 100 vegetable, and so when you take it, whoop, notice. Don't worry, I don't want to bounce up again. All right. Okay. Fruit, vegetables. If you take it separately, you can cut down on the little bounce. Notice? Remember the first one? Boom. The second two are boop, boop. That's balance in nature. You can live the life you want. You can spend time with your family. You can have an active lifestyle. So they keep the prices the same no matter what, even with inflation. And nothing is more fundamental to your diet than fruits and vegetables. You cannot have enough fruits and vegetables. This will make sure that you have enough. You want to have more? Have more. You want to take 5 of these a day? Each? Take 5. I take 2 and 2. So I take 4 altogether. And I may think of, as I get older, increasing it somewhat. But I'm a pretty active guy for my age. And
that's right, everyone.
And this helps. This helps. I got to tell you, balance in nature. Thank you, Dr. Howard.
Promo code Rudy. Promo code Rudy. Don't forget to use that promo code.
No matter what you buy, put in promo code Rudy.
That's right.
It won't hurt.
No.
So you might not get a discount. I might not get any money, but at least they'll know that I'm popular. and that these people that are trying to destroy my reputation are losing.
That's right. Mayor, we have a phone call. We have. Would you like to take one?
People still call me even though I'm drunk.
Well, Julie from Washington State is on the line. Julie, you're on the line with the mayor.
Well, hello there, Rudy.
Hello, Julie. How are you?
Oh, happy to talk to you as always.
Always happy to talk to you.
Oh, I gonna say, go, Rudy, go. You never give. And they've got a lawsuit going against that Fannie Willis. I watched it tonight.
Fannie Willis
in Georgia. They're filing charges against her, and it sounds pretty good. I watched it on Frank's speech.
Who did you have on?
On the Lindell report.
Who did you have on? I couldn't hear that.
Lindell.
Oh, Mikey?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I love Mike. Don't forget, mypillows.com. Code Rudy down there too.
Yes.
Do you order from him? What do you? I mean, I
Yes,
like.
I
You know
do.
what I like? I like the slippers, and I like. I mean the blanket. I mean the sheets and the pillowcases. I have all those, but not that I pay a lot of attention to that stuff. But I do like their robes, and I do like their slippers.
I've got the mattress topper. I got a mattress topper, pillows,
Good.
towels. I bought my mom some sandals, and
All right.
I haven't. So I order from him too.
Yeah.
His products are very good.
So he had a revelations on Fanny.
Yes, on the Lindell report, you could probably.
Well, we'll get it as
go to
soon as we
Lindell
get off.
TV.
In fact, we'll look for it now before we get off, and see what we can do. You know, I feel like we're having a personal, like you're a friend. So I want to. We just had a robbery right near here. Mike tells me.
That's right.
And Mike is in law enforcement. He should really go out and make an arrest.
Oh boy.
What happened, Mike? You know.
Yeah.
So you better not come visit my studio. It's dangerous.
Yeah. So basically, there was an armed robbery with. There was an armed robbery with a car. They took some jewelry from two guys with a gun, and they fled. And now the NYPD is looking for them, which happened literally 400 feet from the mayor's house.
What?
In the Upper East
And
Side.
this is a place.
Where did this happen?
This is a place that when I was mayor and Bloomberg
East
was
65th
mayor.
Street.
Yeah,
East 65th Street.
I don't.
right now,
I
just
think in
now.
20 years there wasn't a
Yeah,
crime
yeah.
here.
An armed robbery with
A block away.
with guns.
Just right there.
I could have drove right through it before.
No, a block away, like 400 feet
You
away.
know, after all the years after all the years that I was here,
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
and
Thank you.
Bloomberg was the mayor. There was a homeless man that showed up on the street here when de Blasio was mayor, and the neighbors got together and came to me and wanted me to get rid of him. And I said, I'm not the mayor. I can't get rid of him. And they said, well, you just watch what he does. And I will tell you on the air in the nice way I can. He would urinate and defecate on the street and leave it there on purpose. And there are kids on this block. So when I saw that, I got really angry. One night I came home, I walked down the block. I had a security company then. My security people would take me home. And we walk down the block and we see it. I go upstairs, I call the precinct and I report it. And when I report it, they give me kind of a runaround, well, we're not allowed to follow up on homeless now any longer. I guess since that guy Bloomberg left or whatever, Giuliani left. And I said, well, guys, I'm going to come in and report a person. Well, that's your prerogative. I said, okay, well, I'm glad you guys know big words like that. So I walked over to the precinct, which is just 2.5 blocks away, the 17. That's the way we describe our precincts in New York. It's not like the 27, it's the 27, the 88, the 17. I walked over to the 17, which happens to be an exceptionally beautiful precinct, used very often. You can see it at times. Usually it's the first precinct, but occasionally they'll use it in Law and Order. And I walked in. I'd been in the 17 many times, not arrested as the mayor. I would go visit precincts like that. And when I walk in, his desk officer starts smiling. 3 or 4 cops in the corner clap. And every cop, I think they're leaving come over to see me. Because now de Blasio was mayor, and they hated de Blasio right away. They turned their back on him, and for good reason, by the way. And because they believe he got 2 cops killed. And I told them, and now they were very different. Now they were they explained to me, you know, it's different than when you and Bloomberg were here. We can't do anything about it. They say it doesn't, he has an interpretation, it doesn't violate any laws. Da-da-da-da. I said, believe me, defecating on the street violates laws. Let me show you the statute so we can go.
Health laws.
Yeah, oh, sure, absolutely, yeah, and disturbing the peace even. Health laws, sanitary, all kinds of things. So I give them 5 different statutes they can use. I said, go grab them. So they went and they grabbed him. I was a big hero on this block for a while. That was the last thing that happened here. Hasn't been a crime around here. This is you know, one of the safer parts of the city. And when you start having crimes here, it's starting to explain why more people leave New York than any place in the country.
That's right, Mayor. Not just a robbery, but an armed robbery with firearms. That's dangerous.
No shooting though.
No shooting, but
well, then they'll all be out on bail.
Of course, this is New York.
But that's what Bragg, the one also prosecuting Trump, originally announced. If it's an armed robbery without a shooting, you go free.
When there was law and order, what would happen to those guys? They'd be in the clinker for a while.
I mean, if
They get taken to Rikers immediately.
If it were Bratton, Safer, or Carrick,
Yeah,
they'd be overnight. First of all, they'd be overnight.
Yeah,
we wouldn't. The judge would be tied up tonight.
Yeah, they'd have to stay at central booking.
They'd have to go. No, I think I'd send them to Rikers. I'd put them on a bus to Rikers Island, give them a little taste of Rikers Island. I used to do that Oh, I should. I'm not supposed to say that. Okay. I never did that.
Let's just say you don't want
Let's just say that somehow they would be too tied up downtown and they had to go to Rikers
they
Island.
would pay a price.
A lot of people, they go to Rikers Island once, they're like smart people. They don't want to go back ever again. It's not a bad place to send somebody that is on the verge of thinking over a life of crime.
Mayor, not to reveal much, but when first timers come to Rikers Island, they demand protected custody. That's how terrified they are.
Yeah. So you imagine if you take a guy that's, a first time burglar, first time robber, or first time caught, you could there. I mean, it doesn't work with everyone. It works with a certain percentage, though. You lock them up and boy, they don't want to go back. They don't want to go back. So, why is Maui not Katrina? I mean, why isn't Biden ripped apart? I mean, I've got all these quotes, even in the Biden suck up newspapers, that say we're not getting any help from the federal government so far. He ignored us for 13 days. Took him 13 days to visit the island. Then he didn't do anything for us. Biden was on the beach while those of us here were dying. These are people. These are citizens from Hawaii. I can't speak for everybody, but we feel like we're not getting any help out here. At least, certainly not from the federal government. Being on fire, not knowing where land is at points, the current's pulling us out where we can't touch the ground, and knowing we're on our own. That's what the Biden administration was doing. So, but the press covers it like a minor story. It's caused by climate change, which it wasn't.
It was called this by a live wire.
Climate's been changing since the beginning, and it didn't cause this. And now we got a big fight between the utility. We got a big fight between the utility and the fire department. The utility, of course, is blamed for not putting on the alarm. And the firefighters, they blame the firefighters for leaving too quickly after the fire appeared to be put out and then had to come back again. Now, I can't arbitrate that. But I do know I'm basically on the side of the firefighters, so they're going to have to prove it to me.
Mayor, it should have been a front page Biden story today. The only people I saw cover it was the New York Post, that ISIS-linked smuggler got 10 people in the border. That should have been a front page Biden story. Yeah. And why wasn't it? Because now we have 10 terrorists, and the FBI are manically looking for them. They did not find them yet.
Yeah,
from Uzbekistan.
I forgot the number that came in this year, but take it and double it. What you got to do is take it, double it. That's not a number that came in like the group that you're talking about.
Right.
So let's say they arrested 300-400 this year, or intercepted 300-400. It means there are 300 or 400 walking around that we don't know about, and they possibly are in that group that they're putting in Staten Island, and they wouldn't know any different. And that's why the people in Staten Island are going crazy. And if you start painting them as being out of control, it's really unfair. You're rolling the dice with the Mexican cartels. Every group that comes in of those people you see coming over the border probably has people in there inserted by the Sinaloa cartel or Del Golfo cartel. I'll show you a map of them. I have it here. I did it for one of my podcasts. I probably have to update it. They got the border covered. And this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for them. Literally, Joe Biden has turned the borders over to the cartels, and they've become massively rich. I had a guy call into that. I wasn't able to get to the call that wanted to know if I thought he was getting kickbacks from the cartels. Sort of indirectly, China, they're one of China's biggest partners. That's how fentanyl comes in. China is about 90% of the fentanyl comes from China. They make a fortune on it. China gets a twofer on that, right? China gets to kill us. We're their enemy. They did a good job with COVID, but Biden will never face up to that one, right? What did Trump call it? Chinese virus? And they killed him for that. And viruses, I mean, it wasn't even it even had some substance. Viruses are often named from the place they come from. I think he called it the Wuhan virus. That until we began our wokeness and our protection for China, that is exactly what it would have been named. And not even because it came from the lab itself, but because it definitely came from that town. A lot of the viruses in our history are named from the place they originated from. And as best we can tell, it originated from Wuhan. Question is, did it just kind of like emerge, or did it come from the one laboratory in 1,000 miles that had it in it? That's another one of those that takes a real genius to figure out where it came from. Wuhan the virus escapes into Wuhan, and there's a big laboratory there that's making the Wuhan virus. And there isn't another one for 1,000 miles. But no, it came from a bat that was being sold at a meat market. When it turns out, upon further investigation, they don't sell bats at that meat market. They don't sell bats within 1,000 miles of Wuhan, because the people in that part of China don't eat bats. It's a different part of China. I mean, the lying that you were subjected to is disgraceful.
So, Mayor, I want to put something in perspective here, back to the border. Since last year, 460 known suspected terrorists have been caught in 9 months. So 460 terrorists came to the border because they thought they can get in. Can you imagine the ones we didn't? 460. Can you imagine the ones that didn't get in, Mayor, that didn't get caught?
Well, I really did want that number. So I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You want me to tell you want me to tell you the literature on this, the scientific literature? There are 3 major studies of how many people come in without any detection, and how can you determine that based on the number that come in with detection. And generally, it's depending on who you listen to. But let's take the left-wing one that comes from MIT, and I think it's either University of Pennsylvania or Princeton did it together. So that's the Ivy League one. That's a 50% number. So they say if 1,000 come in and are processed, or they're not processed, just identified, then 50%. So then 500 come in. So if 1 million come in, 500,000 come in. And then there's a study that says 100%. It's 1 for 1. A million. There's a study that says 1.5. So that's 1.5 million for 1 million. And then there's Bernie Carrick, who says right now it's about 3 to 1. And here's what Bernie, and not only Bernie, but a gentleman whose name I can't give you that I had dinner with the other night who does very, very deep work,
Classified.
and who I know from working with the Colombian cartels, where I have the distinction of being one of the people who was threatened by them with having my throat cut when I went there with Bernie about 10 years ago. They put out a contract to cut my throat. And my answer to it was, if the mafia couldn't do it, you wouldn't do it. You can't do it because you're not as good as the mafia. I don't know if it's true or not, but I like to get them irritated. So Bernie's theory is, and I agree with this, but I'm not sure it's 2-1, but I don't think it's 50%. The more chaotic it is at the border, the more people come in without detection. So theoretically, that percentage is going to go up. The more people that get detected, the more people that come in without detection, because our resources are fully used. Right. And therefore, you would say, well, the people are satisfied by coming over, but that isn't it. It increases the demand. I mean, when you see the border open, now everybody's saying, everybody all over the world now knows that border's open. Or every criminal group knows that border is open. Criminal groups are not like the Biden administration. They're not stupid and incompetent. And so literally, I used to say this to people even way back in the old days when the border was open, because they were bringing drugs across then, except in much smaller numbers. I would say the drug dealers and the Colombians would have to be crazy not to use the border. You wouldn't get to run your family very long if you didn't use the border. You got these people coming across. They're getting in without detection. You got at least decent odds of getting them across without detection. If they do get detected, they get sent back, and you can send them back sometime later. So you'd be crazy not to take advantage of it. Now you'd be nuts because nobody gets sent back. Nobody gets arrested. Nobody gets nothing. And you got Border Patrol people that will tell you they just see people coming in and they have to let them go because they don't have the resources. I mean, if you did a survey of the Border Patrol and they could tell the truth, they could probably give you a number of people they actually see coming over the border and walking into the interior of the United States. They never stop them. Yeah, they can't.
Right now, the odds, I just looked it up, are 50-50 you make it or you get caught. That's the odds right now, as of like last month. 50-50.
Okay, so that's 100% then.
Yeah.
That's 100%, which is the number that is probably the conservative between the Ivy League low number and the 1.5 to 2 times.
Can you imagine the Trojan horse that actually is 10 years down?
So now how many? So now let's do the arithmetic. About 6 million people have come in under this non-president. That means 6 million came in what we don't know about.
Yeah. So like as you look at the terrorists, 460 were caught. So probably another 500 came in there. We don't know that.
You don't think they slip on the buses?
Of course they do.
And head up to Staten Island?
Well, they probably have it down.
So when Staten Island is saying we don't want those 300 people or 3,000 people or whatever, a lot of them may be poor little people. I don't know. But a lot of them also may be people who were brought in by the Sinaloa cartel, the Del Golfo cartel, MS-13. They could be terrorists. They could be people let out of mental institutions. And just in case you think I'm exaggerating, the first group they sent up to Buffalo, within 3 hours, they raped 2 people. And the county executive of Buffalo told Adams, take them and shove them up here, you know what, and send them back. And he's a Democrat. You've got the case, got this terrible case. I don't know if I still have it here. I was carrying it around because this little girl got raped by a guy that came over in January, a Biden. I think these people should have a sign on their back. Biden people, Biden people, Biden people, Biden people.
These people are doing all these crimes. What is it going to take for people to realize that Democrats are just killing this country? Another 9/11?
I don't know.
Like what?
It's going to probably it's going to take somebody other than Republicans to tell them, because they probably don't believe us. But I mean, the reality is, if you look at American cities, we could go through like a map of cities, and they're all Democrat. They say, oh, there are Republican states that have more crime. Republican states that have crime have crooked Democratic cities in them, like Austin, Texas, and Houston, Texas, which used to be a very, very calm city and now has a Soros prosecutor in Houston, Texas. But I mean, you take a look at a map here of the US of A, right? We get a nice map of the USA. And map of USA. Nice little map of USA here. There we go. I got a. So let's see. We pick out a couple of places. In New England, where do you think the most crime would take place? Can you guys guess a city?
In New England?
Yeah.
The most crime
Yeah.
per capita?
In a city.
But,
No, not per capita. No.
Oh,
crime
in
in general.
Boston.
Boston.
Oh,
right?
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
Boston, yeah.
Democrat.
Democrat
controls.
run.
Yeah.
Yeah, Democrat run.
We know the one in the middle Atlantic states.
New York.
That would be New York and Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah.
Philadelphia has been Democrat for 50 years. New York has been Democrat except for Giuliani and Bloomberg. I'll give you a nice little test. The last riot in New York before the ones under de Blasio was when we had a Democrat mayor.
It was Dinkins, right?
Dinkins.
Yeah.
The
that was the
Crown
last
Heights,
riot.
Crown Heights riots, right?
Yeah. And that can
Right.
tell you everything else you want to know about crime.
Right.
Then Philadelphia, of course, had 2 years in a row of record crime rates. They have a Soros prosecutor. New York has a Soros prosecutor. You want more crime per capita in New York than New York City? Go up to poor Rochester, New York.
What about Albany?
Rochester has set a record for murder 2 years ago with a Soros prosecutor. And I'd have to look carefully, but a number of those cities up there now have more crime per capita than New York. Syracuse, Buffalo, really bad. Rochester, terrible. Albany, not as bad. And Albany has a converted Soros prosecutor. The guy has gone on the other side and is now in favor of changing all the let the criminals go free laws.
Oh.
And who knows if they're going to support him for re-election because he's actually bringing crime down. He's saving people's lives, so they want to get rid of him. Washington, D.C. is a madhouse.
Oh, that's places.
Washington, D.C. is a freaking madhouse.
Once you leave the capital, it's a war zone. It's a war zone.
People
Yeah,
who live there for years are moving out.
Well, and then you got Baltimore right next door, which is another war zone.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Have we hit a Republican city yet?
No, we haven't.
Okay. Do I have to go on? I mean, and then if you go into the South, the cities producing the crime are the Democrat cities, like Texas. Texas has a lot of crime per capita. It's driven by Houston and Austin, both of which have Democrat mayors, and so does Dallas.
Austin's supposed to be a really nice place. Like a lot of people moving there. So I'm surprised.
Massive crime.
I'm surprised. Yeah, a lot of
Massive
liberals are moving to Austin.
Well, they stopped
Yeah.
actually about 3 years ago. They got a Soros prosecutor, and crime is through the roof.
Wow.
This is why the schools want to teach gender instead of math, so people can't do basic math. You think if you could do basic math, you could figure out exactly what you're saying right now.
Basic math. You don't do math. Math is inequitable.
Oh, math is racist.
Racist.
Well, you have to know the answer,
Right. Math is racist.
and that's unfair.
2 + 2 is racist. That's what they say.
It is.
Oh, duh.
You have to wonder how do these people?
Do we have to cancel him for a couple of days because he said that?
I'm suspended. Because 2 + 2.
Let me see. We're into soccer time.
Oh, we're way into soccer.
Oh
time,
man, we had a good time tonight. Let me
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
Let me tell you a few little other items. Gasoline prices going back up again. This is one of Biden's biggest lies. I just want to alert you to. Biden likes to say, "I brought the price of gasoline down."
Lie right to people's faces.
He brought it down from the record high that he had it at to an amount that is now 50% higher than when Trump came in, and it's going up again. In fact, in the last year, it's gone up 60 cents. It's now at 382, and by all accounts, rising. Just in the last month alone, it has had a 40-cent increase. So it's going up again, and it never went down to anything close. It never reached even 40% of what it was under Trump. Inflation, you're spending $700 to $800 a week more than you did under Trump. Multiply that out for the year. Jacksonville, Florida, that vicious gunman who killed Angela Michelle Carr, A.J. LaGuerre, and Gerald Gallion, is some more evidence determined about him is basically that he's a madman, a white hater, and not part of a gang or a group and an individual animal. And his diary was put out, or his, whatever they call it, manifesto. I think it's silly to call these things manifestos. It's makes these people much too important, but they do call it that. But notice they never put out the manifesto on the guy in Tennessee who killed even more people, and they're holding it back. Could it be because the guy is, what is he, a transvestite or a transdresser or a trans something or other, and had a lot of anger and hatred? The police chief tried to make that point during one of the press conferences, and I think that was the last time we saw the police chief. Ukraine, they've decided they're going to let Ukraine in the EU in 2030, but that
They'll be gone by then.
I don't know what's going to happen there. Is there any? There is. I mean, it's ridiculous for me to ask as a rhetorical question. Is there any plan to see that war to a conclusion, either a victory or an acceptable conclusion? Yeah. No. I mean, how many more people have to die? By the way, that is one that I can tell you without fear of the slightest bit of contradiction. And anybody from the Times that would like to come on this show and debate me on this, if you had not participated in defrauding the American people and getting Biden elected, which you did, New York Times, not just by suppressing the hard drive, but for all the lies you did during the campaign, there'd be thousands of people, Ukrainian and Russian, alive today, because that would not have happened. You know that Putin invaded under Bush, invaded under Obama, invaded under Biden, and even the president they did invade under. You won't say it, but you know who it is. The name that's not allowed to be spoken. That's right. Because we're too scared he's going to break up our crooked, corrupt.
Because democracy dies in the dark, as they say.
Democracy is certain portions of democracy are completely dead in America, like a justice system, a two-tiered justice system. Remember what Rudy Giuliani says: a two-tiered justice system is a contradiction of justice. We should never say two-tiered justice, because you can't have a two-tiered. You can't have a different result, massively different result for two people based on their political party or because they're in power or not in power. That's a system of injustice. That's a fascist, communist, Nazi type of government. And let's see what else we have here. Oh, last one. The Pope, speaking to a group of Catholic youth, because it was Catholic Youth Month, for some reason in St. Petersburg, told them they should follow in the path of Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, whom the Pope called great enlightened, empire of great culture and great humanity. Of course, this drove the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church crazy. The Archbishop Sviatoslav Shevchuk said the Pope wars had caused great pain in the church's hierarchy. They were the worst example of extreme Russian imperialism and nationalism. And then the Pope, and then the former Estonian president, Thomas Hendrik, said that the comments were truly revolting. By the way, the Catholics of Poland, Lithuania, and Belarus raised uprisings 3 times against these enlightened emperors.
That Pope's starting to sound like Joe Biden to me.
I think it's the liberation theology, which I will tell you about tomorrow. Liberation theology is the contradiction of Roman Catholicism. I would like we, as Catholics, believe that the Pope is infallible on matters of faith and morals, not on politics, by the way. And we believe, as Christians, the words of Jesus Christ over anyone, which is, render to Caesar's that which is Caesar's, and unto God that which is God. So the Pope's got nothing to do with telling us about governments and Peter the Great, and his opinion on Peter the Great or Catherine the Great or anybody else is no better than yours or mine. On faith and morals, it's different. But this is a weird statement. And it's weird how left-wing he is. And it's weird how he favors communism. I would just like to remind him, with all due respect, that Our Lady of Fatima, who I think all of you might remember, at least the name Our Lady of Fatima, the purpose of her visits to the young children of Fatima was to warn them that communism might take over the world, and that it was atheistic and anti-Christian and anti-God. That was the purpose of her visits. So next time you do spiritual reading, Pope, how about you read about Our Lady of Fatima? Huh? See if our Blessed Mother can give you a little help. Pretty arrogant of me, but not really. I have a right. I have a right to say this. I mean, Catholic Church has not become a censored dictatorship like the Biden government. Well, thank you very much for listening in, and we will be back tomorrow night. We'll be on WABCRadio.com. Please listen in. We had a great show today, and I really felt bad because I had so many callers and I didn't get to anybody, but we will tomorrow. And then tomorrow night, we'll be here at 8, and we are definitely going to take calls tomorrow night. We're going to dedicate some time to that, okay? God bless you, and God bless America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.